So have you ever finished a project or received positive feedback and maybe even gotten praise from your colleagues or your manager, and then you walk away feeling like it just wasn't good enough? Like you hear this external, but inside it feels very, very different and it's very odd, right? So like on paper, you're doing really well, or even in the environment, but inside, internally, it doesn't feel that way. So if you've ever wondered why confidence doesn't seem to grow with you as quickly as your experience or your competence does, I think this conversation is going to help you, because I actually think we've been aiming at the wrong thing. So rather than trying to become more confident, what if the real invitation, challenge is to become more grounded in your own value? All right. And those are not the same thing. And honestly, my experience and what I've seen with so many different leaders is that makes the big difference. That's really what moves the needle on how they show up in that confidence. And the distinction can completely change the way you experience your work and yourself. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Hi, I'm Leeza Steindorf. I work with Fortune 500 companies, state and local governments, and organizations across the world, helping people strengthen communication and navigate conflicts and become really more effective leaders. And one thing I've learned after coaching at all levels is this: some of the most accomplished people, smart, capable, the ones that are just amazing, the most competent people I've ever worked with, they still question themselves. And it's not because they're incapable, just the opposite, right? But it's because they're human. So if you're joining me again, welcome back. And if these conversations have been meaningful for you, or if you find this useful, I invite you to like the video and subscribe to the channel so then you'll know when new clips drop. So let's start with something that actually surprised me many years ago. So doing well at your job and feeling secure within yourself, those are not the same thing. And neither are confidence and knowing your value. And we often use those words as though they mean the same thing, like we interchange them, but I don't feel like they really do. So most of us assume that confidence works like a scoreboard at a game, right? You do good work, score, feel more confident. You get promoted, score, you feel more confident. Your boss, as I said earlier, your colleagues, they praise you, score for more confidence, right? But for most people, all those scores, you can get tons of them. It just is never enough, because the confidence that you're scoring up is coming from circumstances. And some days you feel it, like it's like, oh wow, man, I really feel got it today. But then there are those days that you don't. And so I personally stopped chasing confidence a long time ago, and there's a reason for that. What matters much more to me now is being grounded in my own value as I ascertain it. Because when you're grounded in your value, the way you see yourself, you don't have to come to that feeling of confidence in order to contribute. You're actually sourced in it, right? You bring yourself to the table. You bring your ideas, your experience, your curiosity, and also this willingness to learn, because you're already grounded here. You don't need to get anywhere, but you're curious about getting other places and doing different things. So none of those things require you to feel confident first. And that's why someone can receive like 10 of those compliments and then spend the rest of the day thinking about maybe one criticism they got, because all those racking up of points doesn't really do it. Or they accomplish something they've worked on maybe for years, only then to get it finished, and then they think, oh man, I wonder if I could ever do that again, right? That doubt that comes in. So successes are great, and they look great on your resume, and they build your professional repertoire, right? But they don't automatically change your relationship with yourself. And that brings up a really important question. If success isn't creating the security and the stability within yourself, where does that actually come from? One of the biggest misunderstandings that I see is that we've come to believe that our value rises and falls with our performance, right? You have a great presentation. Wow, I'm really valuable. But if I make a mistake, oh God, I don't bring any value to the table. Yeah, you receive praise. I matter. I'm important here. You get criticism. man, I can't do anything right. Everybody must think I'm bad at my job. And that up and down and up and down, it's exhausting. And you need to know your performance is going to fluctuate. Everybody's does. Because days fluctuate, circumstances, your temperament, the weather, your health, people, whatever. But your value doesn't change. And that's why orienting in your value is so useful. And that doesn't mean that you have to stop learning or growing or taking responsibility for your mistakes or listening to feedback at all. But you're listening from a different place. It means that your worth isn't in question when things are great and also when things don't work great. It's an incredibly liberating feeling, right? To be in that place of, I'm okay. I'm not only okay, my value here is useful and it's important. And man, that didn't go well at all. It's a very different experience. Because when your value isn't constantly being negotiated when something doesn't go wrong, then you become much more willing to, I'm going to say, not only receive feedback, but to take risks, because the risk isn't that huge. It's not your essence that's at risk. It's the presentation or the communication or the project or whatever it is, right? So you can learn and you can grow constantly without ever having those things be a verdict about who you are. All right? So one of the biggest, I think, misunderstandings about competence is that we think it's the reward for doing things well. Like it's what's supposed to come when we get it right. And I don't believe it works that way, kind of like the scoreboard, right? I think what actually grows is your trust in yourself. Yeah, so trusting yourself every time that you discover that you can deal with uncertainty or that you can mess up and move on and learn from it, right? So if you think about that for a minute, self-trust isn't the absence of doubt. It's learning that doubt doesn't have to direct your decisions. Yeah? So every new role you might step into or presentation you give or conversation that you have that's difficult, there's always going to be a part of you that wonders whether you're doing it right. Did I get it? Yeah. Was this useful? Was it received well? Right? So the goal is not to eliminate that voice. It's actually to stop giving that the credence that voice, that questioning is the measurement of your value. So this is something I've noticed again and again, is that people who appear confident, they're not fearless. They're making their decisions from that different place, from that place of groundedness. So they hear the voice in their head. The questions come up, man, did that really land? But they're not asking constantly, am I enough? Right? They may be questioning the expression of their value. They may be doubting whether something was as good as it could have been in their doing of it. But they're not doubting who they are and their innate value. Yeah? They're beginning from understanding that they already have value, that they are of value. So then that question then becomes, given who I am, what's my next step? Like what makes sense? And that's the foundation. So fear might say, oh my God, so what if I fail? But if you're standing in trust, what if I can figure it out, right? Fear might say something like, well, what if they judge me? And standing in yourself might say, I'm going to learn something. Either way, this comes out. So you're keeping a promise to yourself. Every difficult conversation that you choose to have or every new challenge that you choose to engage with, every moment that you stay present to your value and don't run away or don't discard your value and start doubting yourself, but engage from that place of knowing what you're bringing to the table, you're actually, I'm going to say, collecting evidence that you can rely on yourself, that you don't waver, that knowing of who you are and grounding in your value is always there for you. And that stability, man, that changes everything, and it doesn't go away, independent of what the circumstances are. It may get a little questioned sometimes, but when you know your value and you keep racking up that self-trust, it becomes rock solid. And one of the hardest habits to break, I think, is looking outside of yourself for the evidence that you're valuable. You get to decide that. I get to decide that. We each decide that for ourselves. Period. So we mistake external confirmation, I'm going to say, for internal grounding. That next compliment that comes, the promotion, you achieve something, and then you think, oh, there's the proof. And there's nothing wrong with celebrating. Oh my gosh, I'm the first one to celebrate stuff, right? We work hard. We should celebrate and be proud and get excited and appreciate people acknowledging us. But those external accolades don't really carry our sense of self-worth because it's inside of ourselves. And when you're grounded in your value, that confidence, that showing of your self-trust externally becomes less important. It's going to just be there. So you may feel confident some days, and on other days you may feel uncertain, and that's okay. But underneath all of those experiences, either or and everything in between, is that steadiness, that knowing that your worth is not being questioned, is not negotiated every time you start something new, or every time you talk to somebody or engage in something. And that's a very different way to live. It's really juicy. So, if you're good at your job, but you still feel insecure, I hope you'll consider a different way of measuring your worth. Not by how confident you feel today, but by really looking at and knowing your own value and what you bring to the table. Like, you can be exceptionally capable and still experience self-doubt. You can walk into a room feeling nervous and still bring tremendous value. They're not one-to-one, because your value isn't something you earn through some performance. It's who you are. It's something that you learn to recognize. And unfortunately, most of us didn't learn that growing up, but you've got the chance now. And as you become more grounded in your value, something very interesting happens. You stop trying so hard to be confident. You simply are more fully yourself. And in my experience, that's where the deepest kind of groundedness, confidence, if you want to use that word, quietly begins, honestly. So here's an offer to practice this week. If you notice just how often you ask yourself, man, I'm not feeling confident, what's going on? Replace that question. Try something else. What value can I bring to this moment exactly as I am? Enter a conversation, a presentation, a meeting with that question. What value do I bring here to this? And it might be subtle, but with time, that shifts so much, and then it's beyond confidence because you're standing in a stronger relationship with yourself. All right, so if this conversation resonated with you, I invite you to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone else who may also be questioning their value or who are looking for that confidence we were talking about. And I'd love to hear from you. Go ahead and share in the comments. I find them interesting, and we're growing here a very thoughtful community. And if you want to, you can share like maybe a time where you did contribute something meaningful, but maybe you didn't feel confident. And then share what happened. I'd love to hear your story. All right, thanks for being here, and until next time, be well.